Yeah, I was messing around with things. I was curious. Oh, so here we are, back again, and yeah, been a it's been a week. I didn't even know if I was gonna go tonight. I'll be honest, there was a part of me that was like, "Oh, I'm so tired. I should just do this tomorrow." But fuck it, let's do it today. So we're talking about Supergirl tonight. You may notice a little bit of a change. You'll definitely hear it, hopefully, because I have another project I'm starting. And as part of that, I'm not going to give any details. It's still early on. We'll talk about it in the future. But as part of it, I wanted to, do a little bit of upgrading. Because the one thing that always drives me crazy, the one thing I fucking hate is audio. I don't get it. I don't understand it. I also don't get printers, but that's a whole other story for another day. But audio has always just broken me, and I've always hated my audio setup for years and years now. It's not even in my top 10 biggest problems I need to address, but I saw the opportunity and was like, yeah, sure, you know what? Fuck it, let's do it. So I do have a new mic. I don't think it'll make that much of a difference. I hope it doesn't. Again, this is literally my first time ever using it. I've barely tested it. I do need to get a pop filter for it. So you'll definitely hear, if you hear the popping on that, that's why, because my old one, had a pop filter for it that was just for that mic, and so it doesn't work with the new one, but it should be fine. I don't know. I'm trying to figure this out. But yeah, I've got a new project in the works. I've got some ideas, and so that might be coming up in the near-ish future. I don't know. We'll see. Other than that, tonight, we got a bunch of new stuff. We got something from every major company. Xbox, PlayStation, and Nintendo all have stories this week, which is, it happens every once in a while, but it's mostly bad news. Also, Valve has something this week, so yeah, it is kind of a little bit of something for everyone. It is sort of an oops, all bad news week, with the exception of the Nintendo stuff. That hasn't stopped people from being mad at Nintendo and saying that this is a bad thing. It's not. We'll talk about it. But we got a little bit of everything. And then for the WIBE part of the show, we got two food things. I want to talk about Grounded, because I did beat that game. And we got to talk about Supergirl. We got to talk about both my adventures with Superman, which it's season 3, episode 2, as well as the Supergirl movie, which we'll talk about, because as you notice, I have a little outfit. I had this commissioned a while ago. I was like, oh yeah, we're going to be talking about Supergirl. I might as well just get ahead of things. And so I did, in the same way that I got ahead of things for Superman, which I tried to pull up the Superman outfit as well. I can't. But I still think it was a fun idea. It had potential. I was going to do it. But too bad, so sad. So instead, we're working with this. I think it'll be fine. That's my hope. I think it's cute. I like, it's just got, normal blinking eyes, normal mouth. I like the boots. I think the boots are cute. All around, I think it's a fun little outfit. I don't have the beard. I forgot about the beard. And it's just a one-time thing. It's a one-time quick thing, but it's okay. We'll probably use it again next week because I did not watch Supergirl 1984. I know I said we were going to watch 2026 in 1984, but time just got past me this week. I was so busy with other things, so I did not get around to Supergirl 1984, but definitely next week I will, and we'll talk about it, and I'll use this outfit one more time. I know I could have just reused the Superman outfit, but it's Supergirl. And, I'm confident enough in my gender and sexuality that I can wear this kind of outfit with no real problems whatsoever. Yay. So, yeah. That's fun. I don't know. My goal is to go for 2 hours tonight. We'll see how long we actually go. But in my perfect world, we're going for 2 hours, then we're calling it there. Just a nice, good time. but we'll just kind of have to wait and see. Video game-wise, we're jumping back into Shovel Knight. We're doing Specter of Torment. Specter of Torment is the shortest campaign, so hopefully, unlike Plague of Shadows, it won't take me 4 hours. I probably can't beat it in 2, though. So, I mean, like, we'll see. I don't know. It's been a while. I back in the day, I definitely could, but now, all these years later, 9 years later, definitely not. But we'll see how much progress we make. We got a lot, if it takes us longer, then we'll just continue it next week. If not, it's no big deal. With that, let me boot up the game. And hit it. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, back here, Shovel Knight. Oh, fuck, is my audio broken? Okay, now you should hear it. I think that's fine. I think that's fine. We're continuing on with our weird names. Last time we've been going through the alphabet. Well, we've now gone through it, and we'll do whatever's next after King Knight. So if you have never played this is actually a prequel to Shovel Knight. While yes, it is part of the Shovel Knight Treasure Trove, it takes place before the events of Shovel Knight and sets up the main game. Now, King of Cards is also a prequel that takes place after this one, but before Shovel Knight. It's a little complicated, but they're prequels regardless. And I remember when this came out, I was so excited. Everything we saw about this looked so good. I would still argue Plague Knight's my favorite. I just like Specter Knight, whereas Plague of Shadows is just a almost one-to-one recreation of the levels, right? They use the same levels, they use the same assets. Sure, we get new areas here and there. Plague of Shadows is very much, hey, let's just do, it's a paralogue. This, all new assets, all new designs, not everything, obviously. There are still similar themes, similar ideas, we'll see reoccurring bosses. They clearly, originally these were just supposed to be night swaps, where it'd be like, oh, imagine playing Shovel Knight with a different character. And then Yacht Club went so above and beyond, especially with King of Cards and Specter of Torment, that they almost went bankrupt as a result. Mina the Hollower was basically them using up the last bit of their money. And now they're at, they made sure not to make that mistake for the second one. For Mina the Hollower. And Mina the Hollower is great. I still have not beat it because I'm bad. I got distracted. But it's still a great game. And this is as well. If you've never played the Shovel Knight Treasure Trove, I guarantee you it's on sale as part of the Steam sales right now. I think you can get both Shovel Knight, and I want to say you can get Dead Cells as well. If you have not played Dead Cells either, that is an amazing Metroidvania. Definitely one of my, top, I'm going to say 30. I'm going to be generous and say top 30 games of all time. I love Dead Cells, and I love this one. This one's probably closer to top 10. Probably. I don't know. I've never made that list. We're going to have to do it one of these years, but I think I'll save that for the 10-year anniversary. But this game is so good. All these campaigns. There's so much content. Go pick it up on the Steam sale. You may not be able to get a Steam Deck because they're so fucking expensive, but you can definitely pick up this game, and it is more than worth your time. I've played it on Steam. I've played it on everything. It runs great on everything. Even my kind of janky computer can run it perfectly fine. It is more than worth it. Alright, so with that, I guess let's get into things. So for gaming news, we got, 5 stories. I have no bite-sized news. We technically did have 2 bite-sized news things, but I just kind of folded them into the other stories where they're relevant. So do be aware of that. But everything this week, you know, we've got updates on our 2 bite-sized stories last week, pertaining to GTA and to the Steam machine. And then we have stories from Xbox, from PlayStation, and from Nintendo. So we're going to talk about all that. And yeah, I think that's more or less it. It was a fairly busy week. That's how I'll put it. The fact that basically all 4 had something this week. Like, the only one who didn't have, like, a major fuck-up is Epic. Because, I mean, EA's fucked anyways. Ubisoft's pretty fucked. But those are just general things. I would say Epic is the only one who didn't fuck up this week. And they fucked up last week. Not that I'm saying that Valve fucked up. Valve did not fuck up. It's more Sam Altman and, you know, people at, like, Microsoft and those other AI companies. They fucked Valve over. To be fair, they're fucking over themselves as well. And we'll talk about it when we get to the Microsoft stuff. But yeah, I would give... There's a meme going around right now of the different gaming companies shooting themselves in the face. You know, Xbox shooting themselves in the face. PlayStation shooting themselves in the face. Nintendo sitting with the hammer, hitting itself with a hammer. Valve being hit with a water gun. Valve is not being hit with a water gun. Valve is being shot in the face by Sam Altman. That's the proper use of that meme. And all these companies are. Even Nintendo's being shot in the face by Sam Altman. Because fuck that guy. Fuck that guy, man. But we'll talk about all that. And yeah. So I guess let's start off with the Steam Deck. So last week when we had talked, the Steam Deck was, you know, they had announced that it was going to be going for... Or there was a rumor going around that Steam Deck pre-orders were coming soon. We didn't know much more than that. We just knew pre-orders were coming. Or at least that was the rumor at the time. Since then, pre-orders have kind of started. It's more that pre-order reservations have been filled out. And we'll talk about all that. But before, let's talk about the prices. Because this was the big contention. Is what were the prices going to be? Last week, my guess was that the price was going to be $1,000. Based on, you know, market conditions, how there is the memory shortage, how there is the RAM-pocalypse, you know, all this current horrible shit going on in the gaming industry. That had been my prediction. I was wrong, but technically I was fairly close. Our final price point ended up being $1,500. And that's for the 512 gigabyte version. And yeah, I would say I was still pretty close. You know, it could have been a little better, but I was close enough, you know, the writing was on the wall. There is also a 512 gigabyte version with a controller, because that's without a controller. That's just for the Steam machine, which technically you don't need a controller for. You can, you know, hook up a mouse and keyboard. You could use an Xbox, a PlayStation, a Switch controller. They all work. But there is a version with a controller, and that costs $1,128. So that's adding another, what, 50, 60, 70, 80 bucks? I think the Steam controller is $100. So you're saving like 20 bucks on just buying the console and the Steam controller separately. But that's not really much savings. They're still pretty comparable. And so that's the cheaper model. The more expensive model has 2 terabytes of storage. The 2 terabyte version is $1,349. So it basically adds another 300 bucks just to get 2 terabytes of storage. Because that's how bad things are when it comes to memory and RAM. Is that they have to increase it by that much. Of course, you can, I want to say, like, you can get like a 250 gigabyte SD card for, I want to say it's like 40 bucks on Amazon, or at least it was with, you know, the Prime Day sales and everything. So there are ways, and these things do have SD card readers, so there are ways you can expand the storage. But still, an extra 300 bucks for 2 terabytes is a lot. There is, of course, a version with a controller that adds, you know, that same 80, bringing it up to 1,428 bucks. So it's basically comparable no matter which version you get. It's just the memory shortage, the RAM shortage has just made everything so fucking expensive. And so Valve did say that the Steam machine is being sold at a price that is close to production costs, instead of as a loss leader like most traditional consoles. So if you don't follow the whole console business thing, how most other consoles work, Nintendo excluded. This is not how Nintendo works, but this is how traditionally Xbox and PlayStation work, is that those consoles are sold at a loss. So, let's say the PS5 costs what? I'm going to say $500. I'm just picking a number here. I don't think that's the actual number. God, I always forget to bring the amiibo. Let's say the PS5 costs $500. It actually costs, let's say, $550 to produce. But Sony sells it for only $500 because they know that, hey, once people buy a PlayStation, they will buy our first-party PlayStation games, which will then make us more money. That is traditionally how other consoles work. That's how Xbox works. That's how PlayStation works. I don't know about every Nintendo console, but I know for sure the Switch was not sold at a loss. The Switch was sold at, close to its market value, that Nintendo made money with every Switch sold. I know for sure that was a thing. I couldn't tell you about it, I couldn't tell you about the Wii or the Wii U or anything before that. But I know for sure the Switch worked like that. So I've seen some people, hating on Valve and saying that they should have sold this at a loss. They should have taken that hit. They're Valve. They're a multi-billion-dollar company. At least I assume they are. And so they could have taken that hit, sold this console for less money, and gotten it into more people's hands. That is a common complaint I've seen over the past couple days. And I understand where those people are coming from. But I disagree that was ever going to happen. Mainly because this is not like the other consoles. When Xbox or PlayStation releases a console, they have their built-in store marketplaces where they are selling their own first-party games that then put all their money back into their pockets. Valve, meanwhile, sure, they have a few games, but none of them are that old. All of them are pretty old at this point. None of them are able to do what some of the other things do. This is not anybody who does PC gaming uses Steam. It's kind of like how, almost anybody who does PC gaming uses a Windows machine, just because they're so much easier than Mac. Or, I know SteamOS is Linux, but there's also a reason why Valve is giving away SteamOS for free. Because they want people into their ecosystem. And, they may not be able to afford a Steam machine, but they can make one for potentially cheaper, for potentially more. And so, yeah, this thing was never designed to be a loss leader. This was something like, hey, originally this was supposed to be more of a budget PC that people got into that helped them afford some of those games. It was never supposed to be a thing. I know a lot of people will look at this and be like, oh, this is supposed to compete with the PS5 and the Xbox, the same way the Steam Deck is supposed to compete with the Switch 2. But they're not. It's in the same way that the Switch 2 does not compete with the Xbox or the PS5. They're in wholly different markets. I know, this just seems like another Valve's console. This is not Valve's console. This is more of a gaming PC, equivalent to like an Alienware or a Razer. It was supposed to be, not a budget device, but something more akin to that. And now it's not. Because of these RAM shortages. Because that is another thing we found out. That Valve did say that the Steam machine was going to be sold at a similar price to the Steam Deck. Not at a similar price to the Steam Deck. It's more that the market changes that affected the Steam Deck to make the Steam Deck like a $900, those same market conditions also affected the Steam machine. So by those metrics, we can imply that this Steam machine, at least the 512 gigabyte model, was originally going to cost $750, which again would still make it more expensive than the PS5 or the Xbox Series X, at least at the time. We'll talk about the new ones, the new price points here in a minute. But originally at the time, it was supposed to put them more on par with that market. But then, market conditions change, things evolve, and now that's no longer the case. And now, because of that, the Steam machine now costs more than the PS5 or the Xbox Series X. Not that those aren't going to be getting closer, by the way. Those prices keep getting worse. We'll talk about the Microsoft one. It's going to get worse for Sony. It's going to get worse for Nintendo. And Nintendo hasn't even gotten bad yet. Not yet, anyways. So yeah, originally a $750 price point. That does make more sense. Because I remember at some point someone asked if it was going to cost, I want to say $600 or $500 or something like that. And the people who, I can't remember which organization this was. I don't think it was IGN. But Valve just kind of looked at them like, what? What makes you think it would cost, $500? And again, this was back when they announced it, early on into the price hikes, before things have gotten as bad as they are, and spoiler alert, they're going to get worse. But no, $750, it's a little bit more reasonable. Here's the thing. For me, if this thing had come out at $750, I probably would have considered getting it. I definitely would have really thought about it. Because I like PC gaming. I have a PC, but it's not great. It does its job. It can run some of the things I need. It runs all the programs I need it to. I can stream with it with little issue, with no more issues than any other streaming, person deals with. But something like the Steam machine would be a good excuse to get more into PC gaming. However, at the $1,000 price point, that's just too much. I definitely would say I was the target audience for this until the price point changed. At $750, I definitely would have considered it. I definitely would have thought, can I spend that money? Because there are a lot of good PC games that I do want to play. Despite having a PS5, there are a lot of specifically indie games that I'm a really big fan of that, don't ever get ported to PC. Or don't ever get ported to console, I mean. Because only the big ones get ported to console. And some of the smaller ones that I've always been interested in, this would have been a good opportunity. But now, it's out of the cards. That's just too expensive, and it's not going to happen. Didn't stop me from putting in for a pre-order just to kind of see what would happen. So, I guess I should talk about that, because, that's kind of the thing. So, how Valve did it is, in order to, try and prevent some scalpers and whatnot, they basically set up that, hey, you have a few days until through July 25th at 10 a.m. Pacific time. You can sign up to get in the lottery for a pre-order. And then the following day, on July 26th, they sent out emails telling people, hey, you got into the pre-order, you're now in the reservation queue, or you're on the wait list, which means, you didn't make it, but try again next time, even though this is seeming to be a one-time only lottery thing. And, you could register for all the devices, some of the devices, whatever you wanted. And that's how they did it. That was how they did their whole lottery thing. The lottery itself was completely random. How you got chose, what order you got, all just completely led up to fate. Because the idea is to avoid scalpers. And you would think at a price point of over $1,000, that would deter a lot of scalpers. And honestly, you would be surprised. There are people who are currently, even though, again, nobody actually has this thing except for like some games journalists and some tech, reviewers and whatnot. There are still some scalpers who are trying to sell their pre-order for like $2,000, who have been doing these crazy markups. So while yes, it did hopefully slow down some things, it never stops all the scalpers. Because it never truly does. That's the thing. You can never truly stop the scalpers, and even at a product this expensive, that's not enough to stop them. So yeah, do not buy one of these off of like eBay. Do not do that. It is not worth it. It's not worth it at the current price. And guess what? The current price isn't going to get any cheaper. By the way, things are only going to get worse. It's this RAM shortage, the memory loss, it's expected to, I want to say, double, maybe even like 2.5 by fall of 2027. Because, all these people are building their fucking data centers and they're destroying the planet. We're in droughts in certain areas. And nope, we got to make these data centers. Fucking not Mark Zuckerberg, Bezos. Bezos came out this week and was like, oh, humans' need for water is stopping the potential of AI. And someone just retweeted that with, they killed Marie Antoinette for far less than this. Which is technically true. So yeah, all these data, this is only going to get worse. This is only going to get worse. Everything is kind of fucked. It's worse than before. And it's going to keep getting worse before it gets better. Like, you would like to think like, oh, well, what if the AI bubble pops? If the AI bubble pops, then surely things will get better. And I'd like to hope so, but I don't know if the AI bubble's gonna pop in it. It is definitely a bubble. It's just a question of when and if that's actually gonna make anything better. It's like America, in our current recession. Like, if we actually declared it a recession, would that actually make anything better? Or does the fact that the president just doesn't fucking care about people and doesn't think about us at all in his stupid war that, he should have never been involved in, does that actually, that doesn't make a difference. Everything's still fucked. Yes, listen, people are trying hard to make it better. New Yorkers have it pretty fucking good right now. But, the rest of us are stuck with these stupid fucking neoliberal Democrats who, just do the same thing over and over again and act like nothing can ever be fixed. And while we're trying hard to fight the fight, it ain't an easy fight. So yeah, so with that being said, I did put in, just to, see if I made the pre-order list or whatnot, just out of curiosity. I put in for both the normal model and the 2GB model. I got on the wait list. You only get one email, and I got an email for the 215GB saying that, hey, you made the wait list. If a slot opens up, then we'll put you into the reservation queue. But if not, this is where you are. And yeah, that's kind of what I expected. It was completely random. Some people made it in, some people didn't. And because, everyone had to put in, like Jeff Keighley showed that, of course, he got put into the queue for the one with the controller. Wario64 made it into the queue. So, it was just completely up to Chan. So yeah, it's what's to be expected. Again, this is not Valve shooting themselves in the face. This is more Sam Altman and the rest of the industry making their stupid fucking data centers shooting Valve in the face. And now I've seen some people say that Valve should have just held on this for longer, waited for the price of RAM and whatnot to go down. And no, that was never truly an option. Because at a certain point, this thing was supposed to come out in like February of this year. If you keep holding on to it, one, the price may never go down, but two, the longer you wait, the more the product becomes outdated. The technology ages, and that's not something you want to deal with. So I understand why they did what they did. They had to do it eventually. I'm surprised they didn't also do the Steam frame. I do wonder what's going on with that. But this is where we're at the moment. Nothing's gonna change, I think, anytime soon. It sucks. I hope things are better, but literally things are only gonna get worse before they get better. Now, this would be a perfect time to transition into Xbox, but we're actually gonna talk about GTA first. And then we'll talk about how things are even worse because Xbox is also fucked. So for GTA, we finally got some information on GTA that yes, it is still going to be releasing on November 19th. They are not delaying the game, at least not yet. The fact that they're willing to put up pre-orders is the signal, at least as I think about it, that they are sticking to that release date, that they feel confident in that, and I think that makes sense. I think that is a very logical release date. They've had it. They know people are doing it. They know everybody else is avoiding November just to let GTA kind of take over everybody's lives. I know there was someone who was like, oh, it's estimated that on the day GTA releases, the economy will lose like $1 billion in potential value, which is complete bullshit. The whole, oh, the economy, won't somebody think about the economy, is always fucking bullshit. Because it's always potential revenue. It's, oh, well, the potential. Won't somebody think about the potential economy? The economy's so full of shit. The stock market is literally all just future commodities, but for rich people. And future commodities for poor people are just also the biggest bullshit in the world. We'll talk about all that later when we get to Nintendo. So what is the price of GTA? Because we had talked about this last week. I was hoping they were going to be doing 70. Because they already know that people are going to buy this thing. This thing is going to do extremely well. They knew people were going to buy it. I was really kind of hoping they were just like, you know what? We know we're going to make our money. Let's go with the $70 price point. That is not what happened. Instead, they went the way of Mario Kart and they did go $80. But there is also an Ultimate Edition, and the Ultimate Edition is $100. So there are two editions, because there's this whole $60 myth. If you ask some people, they will tell you, oh, well, games haven't risen with the price of inflation. If you take in the price of inflation, games actually should be costing more, closer to 80, 90, $100. That's always been a fucking myth. Because yes, there are still games being sold at 60, but also so many of these games have deluxe editions, ultimate editions, premium ultimate editions, premium deluxe editions, where you need this giant fucking chart just to figure out which version of the game to buy. I mean, this is just two editions, but it still is showing the complexity. That yes, this is an $80 game, but it's also a $100 game. And plenty of people are going to buy it for that $100 price point. So yeah, the $60 thing, a fucking myth. This new $80 thing, also, yes, it is not really a myth, but it's also kind of a myth. So this is the third game to do $80, or at least it'll be the third game by the time it releases. Because so far we had Mario Kart, which Mario Kart was $80, unless you bought the bundle, in the bundle it was $50. Now, I've given my stance on Mario Kart before. Mario Kart World, while a good game, is not worth $80. It is much more worth that $50 that I bought it for, that many others bought it for. However, Mario Kart World has sold almost 10 million copies, and we know that at least 1 million of those 10 million copies were the $80 edition. So we know at least 1 million people spend $80 on Mario Kart World. At that price, it's not worth it. But at 50, oh yeah, at 50 it was worth it for me. At least for me personally. Now, we had not High on Life, Outer Worlds 2. Microsoft tried to release Outer Worlds 2 at $80, and everybody laughed them out of the room. So they backpedaled and made it 70. Because I remember at the time, people were saying, oh, Nintendo has set the new bar. Every company is going to try to set their game for $80. And that didn't happen. One company tried it, everybody made fun of them, and so no other company has done it. And the only reason GTA is doing it is because they can get away with it. They know, again, and this isn't counting things like deluxe editions, premium editions, all that bullshit. This is just standard edition, $80. Only massive games, you know, follow-ups to some of the best-selling games of all time can get away with that. That's why Mario Kart got away with it. That's why GTA is going to get away with it. We'll see if God of War Laufey tries to do that. Because I think God of War might be able to get away with it. I hope they don't. I hope they don't try it, but I could see it. You know, with GTA being successful. Now, I did mention there were 3, and Outer Worlds 2 doesn't count. What is the third? So, by the time... And I'm not counting the Nintendo Switch 2 Deluxe Editions, because those are DLCs. Though, games like Kirby and the Forgotten Lands, Super Mario Party Jamboree Plus TV, and... what's the third one? Mario Wonder plus Meet Up at Bellabelle Park. Those are $80, but those are, you know, $60 games that come with a $20 DLC. Sometimes, you know, sometimes it's not that, sometimes it's more or less than that, but you get my point. Those are a little different. No, the third game that costs $80 is Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave. If you, I don't know if you've looked at it, but if you look at buying a physical edition of Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave, that game costs $80. Of course, because of Nintendo's new policy, if you buy a digital edition or if you buy it on like Amazon or Walmart, you can get a physical edition for $70 or a digital edition for $70. But if you go to like, I don't know, like Target or something, that game is $80. That is the second Nintendo game that they are trying to sell for $80. And I'm not going to guarantee, but I'd say it's like a 90% chance that the Ocarina of Time remake is also being sold at $80. You know, $70 digitally and whatnot. Nintendo, you know, they saw the writing on the wall. I don't know why I did that. Nintendo saw the writing on the wall and made a really smart move by making their digital game $70. I'm not a digital gamer. I'm not. I prefer my physical games, and we'll talk about GTA in a minute. But I get it. Nintendo really thought ahead with this. And sure, it's nice that we have places like Walmart and Amazon, of all people, who are selling the physical games at the discounted price. But it's still... That's going to be, you know, your second $80 game. God. And then we're going to have GTA, which is our third. And again, we'll see what else is coming out. So... what else? So what's in the Ultimate Edition? And, you know, the pre-order bonuses and all that. Basically, you get a vintage Vice City pack. It features a 55 Vapid Saner sedan, a garage alongside the ocean beach, some decadent outfits, some hairstyles for both Jason and Lucia, and the iconic weapon patterns that are echoes of the excess of the past. So, you know, you get some special items, some special cars. It gives you access to special shops in locations that have exclusive gears, cars, tattoos, clothing, all that. Now, if you read the original thing where they posted this, it kind of makes it sound like these are the only shops in the game. But I think that's just worded very poorly. There's going to be more than 5 shops in the game. I'm going to guess that these are just the exclusive shops that have the exclusive items. So I think this is just poorly worded. I don't know, the Ultimate Edition, it also comes with a month of GTA Plus. Now, it is dumb, because if you do that month of GTA Plus, afterwards, it is set up for auto-renewal. So if you know, you do that, you pre-order it, you get that month of GTA Plus. If you don't cancel it, it will automatically renew. That's kind of scummy. I've never really seen that before, where, you know, you buy something and then it just automatically renews itself for you. You know, like if you buy a month of Netflix, unless you, like, let's say you go to like a fucking Kmart and buy a card that has a month of Netflix on it, it doesn't automatically renew at the end of the month. You know, it's just you expired and now you have to buy it again. So I've never really seen something like this before, but they're doing it. And so just be aware of that. So that's our first thing. The second thing is, of course, the thing everyone found out. Now, this had been rumored since like January or February of this year. I don't think we talked about it on this show, but I definitely remember hearing about it while watching Kinda Funny. And it is the fact that the retail edition of GTA 6 will be a digital code in a box. Yep, that's it. There are no physical copies of the game, and that they're doing this from what I remember, the original rumor back in, again, January, February, was that the reason they're doing this is to avoid leaks. That, you know, so many games leak nowadays, that somebody at some sort of retailer gets an early copy of the game, they steal it, they go home, they play it, they post footage online. And so in order to avoid something like that, Rockstar wants to make the game entirely digital. At least that was the rumor at the time. And I do believe that. I do think that makes sense. I don't like it, but I understand why they're doing it. I don't like it, and I wish they hadn't. But, you know, in our leak-heavy culture, they want to avoid that. Because that is one of the things I am glad about the Ultimate Edition, is, you know, in our whole modern edition kerfuffle, one of the very common things you see is these games where it's like, oh, you buy the special edition, you get to play the game 4 days early. I hate that shit. I understand why companies are doing it, because people will pay money for it, but I hate that shit. I really genuinely hate that. And so GTA's not doing that, which is definitely the right move. Because, you know, you want everybody experiencing this game at the same time. That's how you're gonna make your money. So I definitely do feel like it's the right move to not do that. But I'd rather have a physical edition. I have a physical edition of GTA 5. I've got it, you know, it's somewhere's in a box over there, back for the Xbox 360. But I had it. I did. Now, I have seen some people, you know, talk about the whole game key card thing. And yes, at the end of the day, I would have rather had GTA on a game key card than just a code in a box. I would have rather had the game on the disc over either of those. But if you have to do something with a physical edition, give me at least something. Something that, you know, I could in theory resell. Something that I could give to a friend. I don't know, any number of things. But no, that's part of our digital future, is they're trying to kill the resale market, which is probably another reason why this game is like it is, because they don't want they don't want you sharing copies with your friends. They want everybody to have to buy their own copy. That is definitely another reason things are happening like it is. So yeah, I think I'd rather have a game key card, but I'd still rather have a physical edition than either of these two things. It fucking sucks. And yeah, code in the box is just ugly. Doesn't even come with like a booklet or anything anymore. You know, yeah. Now, Jason Schreier, who, again, go check out his YouTube channel. He's been a YouTuber for like a month now, and he's already put out some fantastic videos. Talked about how, at least, I can't remember if it was Xbox or somebody gave him the information that in the modern gaming landscape, 80% of gamers are digital, which is not a number. I did not expect that number to be that high. Like, I definitely knew it was the wider margin. I had no idea it was 80%. That's crazy. And that, you know, companies want that. Companies want people buying their digital games. You know, it goes through their own marketplace. They don't have to pay someone like Walmart or Target, Amazon, GameStop. They don't got to deal with any of that. Like, I see how we got here. I just didn't realize it was that high. 80% is crazy. But yeah, it's 80%. And so that's another reason they're doing it. Because most people, you know, they won't actually buy that physical disc. They'll just buy it digitally. Now, there was talks that a physical edition of GTA 6 will be coming later on. That, yeah, at launch it'll be digital only, but maybe by like January or something there'll be a digital edition, or there'll be a physical edition. And Take-Two did come out and say that at least at this time, they have no plan for a physical edition. Which, that does suck. That also does suck. I would have preferred something. I've seen some people say that the reason why we're not getting a physical edition is because how large the game is going to be. You know, that, I've seen some people say that it's going to be as big as 500 gigs. If your game is 500 gigs, you're fucking failing at game development. The fact that you can't compress shit, you're failing at this. And you know, I give Call of Duty shit all the time for this. Call of Duty games are uncompressed nightmares that are like 200 gigs. And so I was like, okay, first of all, the whole 500 gigs thing, people are just making that up. Nobody knows how big the game's actually going to be. You know, 500, 300, nobody knows. But I was curious. I was like, how many gigs is GTA 5? GTA 5 is 125 gigs. That's a lot. Yeah, no wonder people think GTA 6 is going to be like 300. Compress your fucking games, man. I know, I'm biased because I'm a Nintendo guy. And Nintendo knows how to compress their games. Breath of the Wild, Mario Kart World, was it Kirby? Oh my god, these games are huge, and yet they're only like 20 gigs. I want to say Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are like 17 and 21 gigs respectively. It's so small for such a massive game. I bring up Kirby because I want to say Kirby was originally 23 gigs, and then when they released the Switch 2 Deluxe Edition, it was actually only like 21 gigs. Like, they managed to compress it even more. These companies can compress their games. They're just too fucking lazy to do so. Again, I give Call of Duty most shit. But yeah, Rockstar, compress your fucking games. But even still, even if it is 300 gigs, sell multiple discs. You know, Final Fantasy back in the day was 3 discs, and gamers didn't complain about it at all. Okay, they probably did, but, you know, that was the only option back in the day. 300 gigs is fucking crazy, but it is possible. I just don't. Anybody who tells you currently that the game is like 300 or whatever, they have no idea. They're just pulling a number out of their ass. So the last thing I want to bring up with GTA is that in the announcements, they specifically say that GTA 6 is a single player only game. There is no mention of GTA Online or the multiplayer or anything like that. Now, that doesn't have me worried. You know, GTA Online will definitely come eventually. But I think it's more, you know, a big chunk of the gaming industry is kind of putting everything on hold because of GTA. You know, every game has to release before either September or October, or they have to delay themselves into like February of next year, as we're seeing with something like Fable. But now, let's say GTA Online is coming out in February of next year. That means that there's going to have to be another delay. Because now not only are people, you know, playing GTA 6, I keep saying 5. You know, I've been saying 5 for like 15 years now. Yeah, not only is GTA 6 coming out in November, but if they do online, there's another date where everyone's going to stop whatever they're doing and just play GTA Online. Because that's what happened with 5 back in the day. I remember that. I was there. So yeah, I think it's bullshit. But it's going to cause issues. That's the thing. GTA can't just, you know, take over the month of November. They also are probably going to take over, you know, fucking February or even some other month next year. Because I doubt, like, I know with GTA 5, the game came out in like November, and I want to say the online came out like a few weeks later in December. Yeah, they're probably going to wait longer than that. But so far, we haven't heard anything, but it's just, if the companies are reacting like this now, they're going to react like this again. I've seen some people speculate that maybe GTA Online is going to be a separate thing, that, you know, you're paying $80 for GTA 6, and then you're going to have to pay another 60, 80, whatever for GTA Online. I don't think that's going to happen. I do not think that's going to happen, mainly because we know from the Rockstar leaks a few months ago, I think it was a few months ago, that GTA was making like $1 million a day just out of shark cards and whatnot. The more people they have playing GTA 6 online, the better. The more money they can make off of freemium subscriptions. So no, if anything, I could see them releasing GTA 6 Online as a free-to-play thing. That, yeah, anyone can play, anyone can start, but, you know, it's going to have all the shark card stuff. Was it Matt Bragg over on Twitter was talking about how for Achievement Hunter back in the day, they would have to spend like $100 to $200 just to do some of those GTA videos. Just to get all the new items, to get everybody like the new vehicles, to do the setup for like the Doomsday heist and whatnot. That costs hundreds of dollars. Which, yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. But yeah, so far we got nothing. I am surprised we didn't get a trailer. I really thought that we were going to get a new trailer for GTA. But that didn't happen. It's not the end of the world or anything. I really thought that was going to happen. But nope. Rockstar is so confident that they don't even need a trailer. And we'll get one eventually. But just not anytime soon. Shit. Sometimes it be like that. Alright, let's talk about Xbox now. I kind of teased this earlier. So, Xbox did their price increases this week. Because even though I want to say Xbox had already raised their prices once. Asha Sharma, you know, has been talking about how, hey, you know, right now Xbox isn't doing so well. And, you know, we've got to make up these sales numbers. But also, it costs like 1.5 times as much to make an Xbox today as it did this time last year. So now we're seeing that reflected in the price. So we have new updates. The price of Xbox consoles will increase by 100 gigabytes for the 512 gigabyte models and $150 USD for the 1 terabyte model. So the new prices are the Xbox Series S with 512 gigabytes was originally $400. It's now $500. You know, it used to be cheaper than a Switch 2, and for about a month, it'll be more expensive than the Switch 2, which is kind of fucking crazy. And then after that, they'll be the same price, which is also kind of fucking crazy. The Xbox Series S with 1 terabyte was originally $450, and now it's $600. The Xbox Series X 1 terabyte digital edition was $600. It's now going to be $750. And then the Xbox Series X 1 terabyte with a disk drive was $650. It's now going to be $800. And then finally, the Xbox Series X 2 terabyte Galaxy Black Edition is just being discontinued. Yep, the 2 terabyte model was probably going to cost $1,000. And so instead of, you know, just putting that alongside the Steam Deck, they've just decided to discontinue that model. Which, yeah, the idea, because right now, no console is over $1,000. I want to say the PS5 Pro is either $900 or $950. PS5 Pro. Let me look that up real quick. PS5 Pro is currently $900. Okay. So yeah, no console outside of the Steam Deck, which I wouldn't even really count, has gone above $1,000. And I don't think anybody wants to go above $1,000. Because yeah, at the end of the day, gamers are being priced out of this hobby. And nobody wants to crack that threshold. Again, I wouldn't even say the Steam Deck really counts. So this changed, unlike, you know, PlayStation and I think the last Xbox price increase, where everything went up basically like within like 2 days, this does not go into effect immediately. It goes into effect August 1st. So if you really want to get an Xbox before GTA comes out, you kind of have to go do that right now. You have, if that's for some reason is your console of choice, which, I'm not going to judge, you do whatever you do, but if that is your console of choice, you have a month to go get one. Admittedly, I have no idea how fucking well this... I guarantee you, if you want the thing this will run the best on, it's going to be the PS5 Pro. Guaranteed. I have no idea how this would run on a Series X, but they're doing it. So yeah, this pricing affects worldwide. This is not just like a US thing, this is a worldwide thing. Oh, fuck, I just remembered how to do this. And yeah, it's just bad. It shows how bad things currently are in the industry that Microsoft had to do this. I will be honest, this is Microsoft's fault. Satya Nadella, he's not as bad as Sam Altman. Sam Altman is trying to buy up all the RAM in the world. But guess what? Satya Nadella, the head of Microsoft, is still going heavily into their AI. Any computer you buy nowadays from Microsoft will have one of those stupid fucking Copilot buttons. Fuck, I fucked that up. And now we can't do it. So yeah, things are bad, and Microsoft complains about how expensive everything is nowadays. How, it's 1.5 times as much to make an Xbox. Yeah, you know whose fault is that? Yours. You're the one who fucked everything up. You're the one who made everything so expensive. Sure, it's not you alone, but you're definitely one of the contributing factors. Again, the reason why I'm not giving Valve that much shit for the price of their console is this wasn't their fault. They did not have... These price increases were forced upon them by you and Sam Altman and all these other fucking DeepSeek AIs, Claudes. I don't know all the names. I don't use this shit. Yeah, this is all them. And yeah, Microsoft's like, oh, who do we blame? We blame you. You're at fault. Microsoft is not getting... Yes, they're not the only ones causing this problem. Sam Altman is definitely getting shit for this. Not enough. But Microsoft ain't getting enough shit for this either. They're also fucked. At least they should be. Yeah, this has gotten so bad that, again, there are genuine conversations of people talking about if Microsoft should get out of the console business. And I kind of get it. I kind of see where people are coming from on that end. Because, yeah, it is kind of fucked. So, this is awful. And you want to know how bad this is? This whole RAM memory shortage thing is so bad that Apple is also having to raise their prices. Apple is already fucking expensive. And now their prices are going up as well for basically all of their products. The MacBook Neo, the MacBook Air, the MacBook Pro, the iPad Air, the iPad Pro, and so much more is all going up in price. Not everything. The iPhone, the Apple Watch, the AirPods, the Studio Display, the Apple Pencil are unaffected for now. But even Apple has had to raise all their prices. Like I said, this is only going to get worse before it gets better. And the fact that Apple is being forced to raise their prices just shows you how bad this truly is. How terrible things have really gotten. And so yeah, it sucks. The current position we are in fucking sucks. And I fully blame Microsoft for at least a non-insignificant portion of it. I still, though, fuck Sam Altman. Fuck that guy. He's trying to, he's trying to be the next Elon Musk. And like Elon Musk, he's willing to destroy the world to do it. And fuck Elon Musk as well. It's been a while since I've said that. But he fucking sucks as well. He's also trying to destroy the world, just in his own way. So yeah, everything's bad with Xbox. But they're not the only one everything's bad with. Because guess what? Everything is also bad for PlayStation. Because, yeah, you know how, we've been talking these past few weeks about how Microsoft is undergoing layoffs? Well, they're not the only ones. because now we found out this week that PlayStation and Sony are going to be laying off staff at Bungie. Now, this had been rumored for a little bit now, mainly because Marathon has more or less been underperforming. You know, all plans for more updates for Destiny 2 had been canceled. They had sundown. They had basically removed access for some of the old Destiny 2 expansions. All around, you know, there are people who still play Destiny, even though I don't get how people love that game. There are people who love that game, and have put a lot of time and a lot of money into it, and Sony has no interest in that. Because Sony fucked up. Sony, years and years ago, decided to become a live service studio. They saw how much money your Fortnites and your CSGOs and your Destinies were making, and decided to shift all their businesses to make these live service games. And since then, all of their live service games have failed. Concord failed. Marathon more or less has failed. I mean, there are still people who are playing it, but not to the level of the people play Destiny 2. Not that level. So yeah, I would say Sony fucked up. There, you know, people buy consoles to play single player games. Sure, you have a lot of ball and gun gamers, but guess what? Those ball and gun gamers only play the one ball and gun game they like. They play Fortnite, they play Call of Duty, they play CSGO, and that's it. They don't want to invest in a new ecosystem when they can just continue in the same ecosystem, you know, they've been using this whole time. Why do you think people are so interested in that new Unreal Engine 6 thing? That is basically just the NFT promise of, hey, what if, you know, you could take your items you bought in Fortnite and move them over to other games? Because they're trying to expand people out of a single ecosystem. Because at the end of the day, why would I play something new when I could just go play Fortnite again? That's where I've got all my skins. You know, that's me with Splatoon. Why would I play something else when I've already invested all my time and money, even though I haven't actually paid that much money for Splatoon, into Splatoon? It was the same thing with Fall Guys. Why would I invest in something else when I've got all my skins in Fall Guys? And then fucking Epic bought Fall Guys and ruined it. And I haven't played that game in years, and honestly, I kind of miss it. But I'm not going back because they fucked it up. They ruined it. So yeah, Bungie is doing a reduction in force. They're doing significant layoffs, including most of the Destiny team and some of the Marathon team. So there aren't exact numbers for how many people are being laid off, but Bungie, as a studio, has around 800 people. So there are around 800 people working for Bungie. And of those 800, I've seen numbers as low as 290, which is still a lot. You know, that's a fourth of the people. And then I've seen, that's honestly, you know, that's more of, that's what, 3/8? That's actually a lot higher than that. So yeah, I've seen numbers as low as 290, but I've also seen numbers as high as 400. So it is potential that up to 400 people are being laid off. That's 50% of the studio. If Marathon does not all of a sudden pick up steam, I would not be surprised if by this time next year, Bungie doesn't exist anymore. I mean, they've already gone independent twice. You know, they were originally under Microsoft's thumb, and then they left to go out on their own, and then they were under Activision's thumb, and they made the first Destiny and the second one, and then they got out of Activision Blizzard's thumb to only get bought up by PlayStation. And now PlayStation's fucking them. So, listen, I'm not saying like, oh, this is an I told you so, or this is what they deserve. Not at all. This sucks. So many people losing their jobs. This absolutely sucks. So right, following our final content update for Destiny 2 and our future projects still in early incubation, we unfortunately could not continue at our previous size. And then according to Bloomberg, Bungie Studios head Justin Truman, who succeeded Pete Parsons last year, will also be stepping down. So yeah, things are not looking good for Bungie and Destiny, and this whole live service thing really came to bite them in the ass. And it sucks. Now, we do have some other PlayStation news that I'm just going to throw in here. You know, we talked about GTA and how owning a physical disc is important. That, you know, I like that both as a collector, but it's also important for preservation of media. And we saw an example of this week because, and I didn't have any results to fit this in, we found out that Sony lost their deal with, oh, what is it? Not Viacom. It's one of the studios. And basically Sony will be losing over 500 movies on their online service. And if you have bought those movies, you will no longer be able to watch them. So even though it is content you purchased, you do not own that content. And instead, they're being taken away from you. This includes movies like Terminator 2, Rambo, Apocalypse Now, Hot Fuzz, Moonlight, and so much more. Again, I know there's that common saying of if buying isn't owning, then pirating isn't stealing. And you hear stories like this and it's like, yeah, I get it. I've had my personal affliction with this. The movie Everything Everywhere All at Once. I bought a physical edition, of course, but I also bought a digital. Or, you know, it came with a digital. And I went to watch it one day just on the digital version, you know, convenience. And it wasn't there. Because I guess the Movies Anywhere and the A24 people had like a disagreement. So they took all the A24 movies off of Movies Everywhere. And while I'm pretty sure they are back now, I never got those movies back. I can go on Movies Anywhere. I still don't have Everything Everywhere All at Once. That's gone now. Forever. I'd have to buy it again if I wanted it back. Of course, luckily I have the physical edition, so I've always got that. But that just kind of shows you how, you know, that we don't own the stuff we have digitally. And yet PC people, someone pointed out that, you know, PC people, for as much as they talk about like the perfection of gaming and whatnot, you don't own a single one of your Steam games. You are all just buying a digital license for them at the end of the day. And PC people just don't care. You know, console people make such a big deal about it. Nintendo has been roasted over a spit for the past year just about this fucking game keycard bullshit. And yet PC people just don't care. And I think it's a two-pronged thing. On one hand, they can just pirate any game they want. Like, yeah, you may not own your PC games, but you can also just pirate any PC game. So that's part of it. And then the other part is that a PC is more than that. You know, it's more than just Steam. You have full control over what you do, what you see. You know, you're just not renting a license. Of course, companies hate that, but this is why initiatives like Stop Killing Games are so important. And it's especially important for stuff like Destiny and Marathon, which are probably both going to go the way of the dodo. And when they do, all those thousands of hours people have put in that Destiny 2 over the past like decade, all that's just gone forever. Because, you know, once they shut off the servers, that's it. So yeah, this is why I fully support Stop Killing Games. And why, you know, companies are lobbying so hard to stop it, is because they want to get away with doing stuff like this. Alright, so that's all our negative news stories. We do have one positive one, though. And that comes from Nintendo. So Nintendo had a shareholders Q&A this week. They also, you know, we got some updates on sales figures and whatnot, mainly from Matt Piscatella. So you can go find him for all the details, because he didn't just cover Nintendo. He talked about all the different companies, but I'm just going to focus on the Nintendo stuff. I'll bring up some of the Xbox and PlayStation stuff, just to kind of make a point. But we found out this week that the Switch 2 in the US has sold 5.9 million units, which makes it the second fastest console sales in the United States. The only thing that's better than it was the Game Boy Advance. From, 2001 to 2002, the Game Boy Advance sold 6.5 million. Other than that, the Nintendo Switch 2 has beaten everything else. I'll be honest, I was one of those people. I bought my Game Boy Advance in July of 2001. So yeah, I was also one of those people who... I did not realize it was the Game Boy Advance. You know, the Game Boy Advance, I think, only sold like 60 million units. It did not sell that well, but I guess it just had a really strong first year. So yeah, the Switch 2 is doing great. You know, despite what the grifters will tell you, the Switch 2 is doing great. How, compared to everyone else, they're also doing well, because we found out that PlayStation has hit its lowest hardware sales since May of 2001. It has been that long. Meanwhile, Xbox has hit their lowest hardware sales ever. In the month of May, last month, Xbox sold less consoles than they have ever sold at any point in the last 25 years of Xbox. There are a number of factors. Obviously, the price increases, the fact that people can't afford to live anymore, let alone play video games. Like, God, if they can't afford food, what makes you think they can afford video games? So, like, this isn't just a one-factor thing, but it does show just how bad things are getting. That, yeah, gamers are definitely being priced out of this hobby. But Nintendo's still chugging along. That last month, in the month of May, the Switch 2 was the best-selling console. It outsold the PlayStation 5 by just like 200k, which isn't a lot. Or not 200k, 20k. Which, again, it isn't a lot, but it does show that they did outsell the PS5. So that's all good, you know, that Nintendo's doing well not stock-wise, they're doing well, you know, hardware sales. But we also found out that Nintendo is raising the base salary, I mean. Nintendo is raising the base salary of all their employees by 10%. You know, we see, again, with Microsoft, potentially closing at least 3 studios, laying off hundreds of employees. Sony laying off potentially 400 employees at Bungie. Meanwhile, Nintendo hasn't suffered any major layoffs. I know there was some stuff with Mercury Steam, but outside of that, Nintendo really hasn't suffered any layoffs. So much so that whereas all these other companies are cutting their bottom line just to make record profits, Nintendo is raising the salary of all their employees, because they know that a well-paid employee makes better games. Whereas with most of these other studios, where the employees have to fear for their jobs, and if they're going to be able to, you know, support their family, Nintendo is fully aware that no, if employees don't fear their jobs, they will make better products. And we see this replicated across the industry. Final Fantasy VII Remake. We found out part of the reason those games have been so successful is because Square Enix kept one team together that did all of them. You know, they didn't have to do any rehires. They were able to pay their teams, give them some job security, and it truly made some great stuff. And that's why, you know, companies like Sony and Xbox are potentially failing, is because so often they will cut their bottom line. And I'm not entirely blaming Asha Sharma. I'm more blaming Satya Nadella, who is telling them, hey, you have to make money now. And yeah, they're just cutting their bottom lines, getting rid of their studios, just to make the number go up a little bit to appease their shareholders. Because that is the other thing we did find out about Nintendo, is that despite meeting all their profit goals, despite the Switch 2 being a success, Nintendo stock in the past year has fallen by about 50%. Now, I'm just going to say it. The stock market is complete fucking bullshit. It's basically commodities trading for rich people. Like, the only difference between the stock market and something like Kalshi or Polymarket is, you know, the type of people who are investing in it. Other than that, I'd say they're completely full of shit. You know, it's I don't know, you know, it's a lot of insider trading. I know insider trading's illegal. That hasn't stopped fucking Nancy Pelosi or her husband. So yeah, I think it's all full of shit. The stock market, and the same way that, you know, you see, like, during these, like, the World Cup, you'll see these ads for Kalshi, and it'll be like, oh, well, Kalshi, people on Kalshi think that, oh, you know, Australia's gonna win by, you know, a 60% chance or whatever. That's literally just gambling odds. That means fucking nothing. Also, Australia may be losing. I know they lost to us. That's for sure. But no, I think it's all full of shit. The commodities market, the stock market. Nintendo losing 50% of its value, it was probably just overvalued to begin with. They're meeting all their goals. And the only reason the stock's doing bad is because Nintendo's refusing to use AI. Whereas all these companies are, you know, boasting over AI. That's the only reason half these companies are doing AI to begin with, by the way, is because investors like it. If investors didn't like AI, we would not be seeing it in every fucking product on the market. But because it makes investors happy for some fucking reason, investors have always liked new shit. I guess that's the way to put it. Investors always like the new shit, and they want companies to use the new shit. And because Nintendo is refusing to, the stock market's not happy with them, the investors. But guess what? Things are still going fine. I'm not worried about Nintendo at all. And the fact that they can raise their base employee salary by 10% is a good thing. Of course, Nintendo has issues with, like, temp hires and whatnot, but it's not the end of the world. This is, yes, they could always be better, but also they're not even 10% as bad as literally every other company we've talked about. Except for maybe Valve, but Valve is greedy in its own way. And they don't get called out enough for it. You know, it's that whole leave the multi-billion-dollar company alone. Which I want to be clear, this is not me, you know, sucking Nintendo's dick, being like, leave the multi-billion-dollar company alone. I could give less of a shit. It's more that, you know, everything else in this industry fucking sucks right now. And it's important to know when things are actually going well. Because, you know, hopefully the rest of the industry would react to this and be like, oh, well, that's how you do it. But no, instead they're going to learn the wrong lessons and they're going to do the wrong things. So another thing we found out is that in fiscal year 2026, Nintendo added more than 300 permanent jobs, which that's also a really good thing. And finally, because, you know, this was a shareholders Q&A, they got asked a few questions. I know one of them was about multiplayer. Like, someone asked them about Splatoon's multiplayer and being like, hey, in future Splatoon titles, are you going to get better and have less connection errors? And they basically said yes. I mean, it's, again, complicated. Nintendo's not good with netcode, but I'd like to hope the answer was yes. But the real one I want to talk about is the DS one. So it's President Shuntaro Furukawa couldn't confirm if DS games will be on Switch 2, but did mention that they're working on making their full gaming catalog available on Nintendo Classics. So that's not confirmation that, you know, DS and 3DS is coming, but we all kind of know it's coming. I've seen some people, I think it's Lonely Goomba over on Twitter, talk about how, like, oh, how would they even do DS and 3DS games? There are so many ways they could do DS and 3DS games. Like, you know, I think the easiest thing is just tilt the console 50 degrees, or 90 degrees, I mean. But even still, the other concept I've seen is that, as far as I'm aware, the Switch 2 still has the whole screen sharing thing. Just do screen sharing. The Switch 2 is the bottom screen. The Switch Lite, the original Switch, is the top screen. Hey, boom, now you can use two screens. That seems pretty simple to me. That seems like an option. I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do for DS games, but I definitely know DS games are possible. I see a lot of people write it off. And no, I totally think DS games can be done. I don't think they're nearly that hard. And I think it's more just a matter of time. How they do them on the TV, that's a little bit more complicated, to be fair. But I think it is definitely inevitable. I love how because I think this is the first time King Knight uses cards in this fight, setting up, you know, King of Cards. They clearly already knew what was coming by this point, even if King of Cards wouldn't come out for like another 2 years after this. So yeah, that's all our gaming news. Like I said, it's mostly terrible stories. Fuck Sam Altman, fuck AI. I hope the bubble pops. It's when the bubble does pop, it's gonna, you know, cause the next depression, but the bubble needs to pop. All right, so for WIBE, I got 2 food things. We got one from Wendy's and one from Wienerschnitzel. They should both be very quick. I want to talk about Grounded real quick, you know, kind of like how we've been talking about it for the last week. I want to talk about My Adventures with Superman, because we got Season 3, Episode 2. And then, of course, we're going to talk about Supergirl. I don't know if we're going to... Yeah, we've got like half an hour. We might take longer than that. I don't think it's that big of a deal. I really don't think so. So let's start off with Wendy's. So Wendy's is currently doing a Minions collaboration. They've got a whole Minions meal. I did not... It's literally just a burger and, you know, some sauce and whatnot. The thing I did try, though, was they have a banana Frosty. It's a Frosty, but it's got, like, banana syrup in it. Mine did not have that much banana. Like, most of the banana syrup had, like, sunk to the bottom. And so, as a result, the real only banana I got was at the very bottom. Other than that, I was not really impressed with the banana flavor. I didn't really care for it. You know, other than that, it was a vanilla Frosty, but nah, it wasn't worth it for me. There is, you know, if you get the whole meal, there's a toy. Who fucking gives a shit? You know, just more plastic. There are also 2 drinks, but they're only in those Coca-Cola Freestyle machines, and my local Wendy's doesn't have one of those Coca-Cola Freestyle machines. So I could not try it. But I know they have like a special like Minions. It's not a lemonade, but it's like a Sprite something or other. I don't know. I know they had it, but mine didn't. So, but I tried the Frosty. It was okay. I don't know if you like banana. Maybe yours is better than mine is, but mine was not that impressive. I'll say that much. The other place I tried was Wienerschnitzel. I know we've talked about Wienerschnitzel in the past. I had those fries again, those Bigfoot fries. Still pretty fucking good. But outside of that, they have funnel cakes. Because it's America's 250th birthday. A really lousy one, if you ask me. I don't know if you've seen everything the president's been doing. It's a pretty lousy birthday. And as part of it, you know, a bunch of places are doing like 250 celebrations. I know we talked about Burger King's. I know McDonald's has brought back their fried apple pie, which I have not tried yet. The fried apple pie is good, but I'm not like super like, oh yeah, I need to go try this. But Wienerschnitzel is doing something. They're doing funnel cakes. You know, classic state fair food, the funnel cake. And so I was like, yeah, you know, I'll go give that a try. There's like 6 varieties of them. I only tried a few, but I thought we'd talk about it. There's a strawberry variety, a chocolate variety, an Oreo cookie, a caramel, and an apple pie. So I did not try the strawberry, and I did not try the caramel. But I tried the others, so I guess there's only 5. The chocolate, it just had like a chocolate syrup. Presumably it's the same one they use on like their ice cream. It was fine. There wasn't a lot of it. The funnel cake itself, they were a mix. Some of them were good. Some of them were kind of hard. Like you could tell it was like overcooked a little bit. You know, the dough wasn't that soft or chewy. But you know, for a fast food funnel cake, I've definitely had worse. I think Del Taco has funnel cake fries. I don't know about that. They might be good, but I don't know. I don't go to Del Taco. But yeah, for a funnel cake, I've definitely had better, but I've also definitely had worse. The chocolate was whatever. The apple pie had bits of apple on it. I thought there might have been like a scoop of ice cream, because there was definitely like a white something on it that looked like ice cream. But no, maybe it's just the stuff they're like they're browning the apples in, because they also have like an apple pie shake, which we might have talked about on this show like a month or two ago. I really don't remember. They have an apple pie shake. It's really fucking good. You know, it's just an apple pie shake. It's not really that complicated, and it's fucking great. But Wienerschnitzel is actually pretty okay at shakes. But yeah, it was just apple pie. It got apples on it. It was kind of a mess to eat, because that's one of the. It's kind of you know, I had just like a plastic knife, and it was hard to cut through that fucker. And then the final one was the Oreo one. It's got the chocolate sauce on it, but then it also just has like Oreo crumble on it, like some cut up Oreo cookies, which I was not expecting. An actual fair amount of Oreos. Like, there was more Oreo on it than I was expecting. And to that end, yeah, you know, it was pretty decent. Out of the three, I mean, I'm biased towards apples because I do really like apples. But outside of that, I'd probably say the Oreo one was decent. The chocolate one was just kind of boring. I'm sure the strawberry and the caramel ones are fine. And I didn't try either one. But, yeah. It was just something I was like, yeah, I gotta try that at some point. Size-wise, they're okay. I think they are a little... For the size, they are a little expensive. I think it was like $5. And they're all cost... You know, no matter what flavor, it was $5. And they come in like the same container like the chili fries come in. So they're not like massive. Like, you could definitely get something like 3 times the size at the state fair for probably, I wouldn't say around the same price, but probably for like $8. I don't know how much state food fair is going for nowadays. I definitely know it's like $20 at Trump's state fair. I know that for sure. But yeah, it was just something to try. Those fries are still fucking great. Those are also expensive. Those are like $12. But God, I do like them. So yeah. Let's talk about Grounded. So Grounded is the Obsidian game that, you know, I was originally playing Mina the Hollower, and then I got distracted by Grounded, completely unrelated to it coming to PS Plus, which, by the way, if you have PS Plus, you can go get Grounded for free right now. It is totally worth it. I have had so much fun with this game. It's probably on sale as well, as part of like Steam sales and whatnot. It is so worth it. I've been playing the Switch 2 edition, or just not Switch 2, just the normal Switch edition, but I'm playing it on Switch 2. It looks terrible. Like, I'll be honest, it looks terrible. There's a lot of pop-in, but like frame rate wise, it runs at a smooth, I'm gonna guess a smooth 30. I doubt it's 60, but it runs fine. Like, I've never seen, the only frame dip I ever saw was when I was fighting one of the bosses, and there were like lasers on the screen and like 5 enemies, and like there was so much shit going on, and even then it was just like a frame buffer, and then went right back to normal. It runs great. It just does not look that good. It probably looks much better on PlayStation, Xbox, or PC. But the Switch version ran fine. I did finally beat the game. You know, I think last we talked about it, I had done the 4 labs down in the lower yard. I made my way up to the upper yard, and that's kind of, you know, I was trying to figure out how to get underneath the shed and whatnot. That's kind of where I was struggling. Eventually, I figured out, you know, my big struggle was I needed the level 2 hammer to open up the Scabby. But in order to get the level 2 hammer, I needed the level 2 axe. And in order to get the level 2 axe, I needed to find termites. And I saw this giant, like, stump out in the yard. And I was like, oh, I bet the termites are in that tree stump. No, they weren't. Turns out there's a pile of wood behind the shed that I had just completely skipped over. And that's where the termites were. So I went there, got the termite stuff, got the axe. From the axe, I basically immediately got the hammer. And then I was able to do the Scabby, go to the underground lab. I fought the Mant. I think by last week, this was around where I was. I had fought the Mant. I was like 20 hours in by this point. From there, I did the mat. I knew Wendell wanted me to go get the embiggening cocktail and do that. I knew that was going to be a base defend thing. Just because, you know, you walk up to the Java-matic and you see these, like, 3 pink pillars, or these 3 pink cords in the ground. And I was like, oh, those are like the mixers. I'm probably going to have to deal with those like the mixers. Sure enough, so I actually spent some time building some mushroom walls to defend them. And then I realized I didn't build enough mushroom walls. So all the incoming insects on at least one of them points just walked past my walls and just destroyed me. But I actually still did beat it on my first time. But like, it was like one of the things was at like, you know, 80, 90% health. One of the things was at like 50, and then the other one was at like 10. It was one of them was really close to failing. But I did everything else went fine. So I got that. It took me a while to get the stuff for the embiggening cocktail. Mainly gum. Gum was my big hang up. I was struggling to get gum. I know there's a lot of it near the infected area, the fungus base, but I eventually got it. From there, I got the embiggening cocktail, I grew big, and I got the bad ending. And I was like, really? That kind of sucked. Like, the bad ending just wasn't satisfying at all. So I was like, fine, game. You know, the game kind of hints that there's an ominent base. Like, after you fight the mat, you get attacked by some ominent, like, ants. And I was like, okay, so there's an ominent base somewhere. I didn't know where it was. But much earlier in the game, I had seen the giant Castle Mordor or whatever it's called, and was like, I want to go explore that. But you have to make like a grass bridge across. I made the grass bridge, and sure enough, underneath the giant castle was the ominent base. So I did that. I fought Director Specter. I only died once. It was one of those things where I was really fucking close to doing it on my first try. I got him down to like 10% health, and I just lost. I just wasn't paying enough attention to healing. But I beat him on my second try. I've been using heavy armor, you know, I have the roly-poly armor. I was using the Mint Mace, but I don't actually like the Mint Mace. I instead ended up using or maybe it's the Salt Mace, and I ended up using the Mint thing. I don't know. Whatever weapon, I was using one weapon, and then I was like, no, I don't like this, I'll use a different one. And whatever one, maybe it's the Salt Mace I didn't like, and the Mint one I did. Yeah, it's the Mint. I did not like the Mint Morning Star, or the Salt Morning Star, but I like the Mint Mace. That sounds right. So I did that. I got that. I beat Director Specter. I still cannot beat a Black Widow. There's a Black Widow. I've seen 2 of them. One underneath the lab, and then the other one was in the toolbox. I cannot beat either Black Widow. Oh my, they kick the poison. The poison just destroys me every time. So after that, I get the chip from Director Specter, and I was like, okay, what do I do next? And I had no idea. I had no idea what I was supposed to do next. And so I eventually, you know, after bumbling around, I killed some wasps, and I opened up the wasp nest, which gave me access to the wasp boss. And I was like, oh, maybe that's it. You know, maybe that's how I open it up. Yeah, no. Because I thought, like, after I got the Director Specter thing, there would be, like, something else I would have to do. Because as part of the good ending is you're trying to undo the reasoning that's affecting Wendell. And so I was like, surely that's something. No. Instead, as I found out, once you beat Director Specter, you can just go beat the game again and get the good ending. So yeah, that was kind of where I beat the game again, I got the good ending, and that was kind of where I stopped. There is still more to do in the game. There are 4 bosses. There's, I think it's like the Broodmother, the Wasp Queen, I think there's an Orchid Mantis, and then there's like one of, like an infected Broodmother. I did not fight any of them. I probably could have, you know, I know enough that I probably could have if I had wanted to. The game was telling me to go fight the Broodmother, but for, you know, getting the true ending, you didn't have to do any of that, which I'm kind of glad I didn't, because I was talking to somebody else who had beat the game, my brother, And he was telling me how bad the Infected Broodmother was. That's like one of the hardest bosses in like any game. So I'm glad I'm not dealing with that. Maybe I'll go back one day, but for the moment, I'm kind of good. You know, I put around 30 hours into it, which is still pretty standard, but that's a lot for me. And there are just so many other games I want to play. You know, I want to play Mina the Hollower still. I still got to beat that. I want to play Xenoblade. I don't know, Blessing Adeoye Jr. has been playing Xenoblade on his stream, and I've not really been watching, but I've been listening to it in the background, and it really makes me want to play Xenoblade. I really want to play Xenoblade again. So it's been one of those things where it's like, okay, I'm not going to play Xenoblade until I beat Grounded. I've got to beat Mina. I also kind of want to play a Pokemon game again. It's just, you know, it's been enough time. Listen, it's for the best that we're not getting Winds and Waves this year. I'm glad they're potentially taking a full another year to work on the game, but I really want to play a Pokemon right now. And so maybe I'll do like a Nuzlocke of Scarlet and Violet. I don't know, it's definitely something I'm thinking about. Not on stream, obviously. I'll probably do that off stream. But it's just, I want something. I want something Pokemon. Fire Red and Leaf Green earlier this year just didn't really do it for me. So yeah, let's talk about my adventures with Superman. Hey, guess what? My Superman outfit's kind of still relevant. So we got the second episode of the show of season 3. This episode, it's Superman Con. SuperCon, I don't remember exactly what they call it. But, you know, this is Kara's officially debut as Supergirl. She's making our first real public appearance, sitting down with an interview with Cat Grant as they do like a Q&A. Meanwhile, Lois is inspecting the Toyman, because the episode's called like, not Full Metal Toyman. It's something Gundam related. They've definitely done a Full Metal Alchemist joke in the past. It's something like Gundam Toyman or something like that. I'll be honest, it's a very minor part of the episode, but it's probably the most standoutish thing of it. Clark's plot is that there's a villain called the Whip. Who the fuck is the Whip? I'd never heard of this villain. Turns out the Whip is like a character from the comics who has been like multiple people. Like there have been like a dozen different Whips. And this one, she's a Russian woman who wants to, you know, be a bounty hunter. And so she's trying to take out Superman in order to build some street cred. She's also flirting with Superman. Like, she's very clearly has a crush on him. Which, you get some good lines out of that. I like the line where it's like, oh, after I defeat you, they'll pay me more than they pay you. And Superman's just like, they don't pay me at all. She's like, what? You know, Superman, I still like you, even if you're broke. Shit like that was funny. Yeah, she's funny enough. We find out through her that kryptonite is now very common. That after the whole Brainiac thing and the Metallo robots, it's actually very easy to get kryptonite now. Which is, you know, that's balancing out Clark a little bit, I guess. You know, making it so that bigger bad guys can more easily defeat him. I get that. I see where they're coming from there. And then the episode ends. Oh, wait, let's talk about the Supergirl part real quick. So Supergirl does this interview. So before the interview, we get Jimmy Olsen and Kara. And Kara confesses her feelings to Jimmy. And is like, hey, I want you to be my mate. And Jimmy turns her down. It's all stop. All week, I've seen memes about how Jimmy fumbled Kara. Which is technically true. I'd say it's a little bit more complicated than that. Because the whole reason Jimmy doesn't want to date Kara is not because he doesn't like her. He does like her. But, you know, she's been a bird in the cage underneath Brainiac's thumb basically her whole life. And so as a result, Jimmy thinks that she needs to go out there and see the world, meet other people. That sure, they like each other and they can be happy together. But there's more to it than that. There's more to the world, and she should at least deserve a chance to see it. And it's one of those things where, like, yes, Jimmy fumbles, but at the end of the day, I completely agree with him. I definitely think he is in the right here. to be like, yeah, you need to go out, you need to meet new people and see the world. It reminds me of, if you've never seen the Tangled show, one of the early plot points in the Tangled show is that Rapunzel, you know, she's been under Mother Gothel's thumb. She's lived in a tower her whole life. So now she wants to go out there and see the world. Meanwhile, Eugene is a thief. He's been on the run his whole life. He's, you know, seen the world. And now he's ready to just settle down and, you know, spend some time with the woman he loves. So one of the kind of conflicts early on is that they both have things they want in their life that are different. And while, yes, the show eventually, you know, they can still work things out, it does bring up the complications of that. And that's kind of what I feel like here. Like, they're both right in their own ways. So yes, Jimmy fumbled, but it's not a bad thing. After that, during the Cat Grant interview, first we see Jessica Cruz. So Jessica Cruz is voiced by... oh god, what's her name? Fuck. The woman who plays Moana, she was also Haley, and Haley's on it. She's actually a really good voice actor. She's done some great work. She's got a great singing voice. And yeah, she's going to be Jessica Cruz, which is fantastic. It's like it's not Alay Villani. That's Alan Villani. I don't remember her name. She's great though. And her as Jessica Cruz in this episode is really good. I like how she talks about Supergirl. She tells Supergirl that, you know, well, yes, Clark in Superman is like the symbol of hope. Kara is great because she's brave. She's a brave warrior who fights for the people of Metropolis. I like that. It's a really good explanation. I don't know much about Jessica Cruz. I've never read any of her comics. The only thing I really know about her is that one Batman movie, Justice League movie, whatever it was. And then the DC Superhero Girl show. That's kind of all I know about the character. I know I guess her thing is that she has agoraphobia, but, you know, she still wants to be a superhero, but, you know, she struggles to go out there after her, like, father was murdered or something. And I think there is potential here that they might be setting up that thing that, you know, she has that agoraphobia in junction with Reign of the Supermen. Because if you know anything about Reign of the Supermen, one of the big moments in that comic series is Cyborg Superman destroying Star City? Whatever city Hal Jordan is occupied in. And so we might be getting something like that with Jessica Cruz. And that kind of gives her a background of why she's so afraid. Which I think has a lot of potential, especially if they actually do that. Are they going to do that? I have no fucking idea. But it'd be interesting if they did. But she's great. And then at the end of the thing, Kara says that, oh, you know, if anyone, she wants to meet other people, so come by her booth. And so afterwards, we see her at her booth getting all the presents. It's very cute. I don't know how well this show is doing right now, but at least on my side of Twitter, this is the biggest show in the world. I have seen so much fan art of Supergirl in just the past, like, 2 weeks. Someone has explained, like, oh, they just made Kara Moe, and as a result, she's now the biggest thing ever. Because there's a part of me that wants to say this show is doing more heavy lifting for Kara than the fucking Supergirl movie is. But she's great. I really like her in this. And yeah, the whole scene with her meeting buff gay Jimmy and will you sign this for my boyfriend is really fucking funny. That's great. Jimmy is jealous. I like that there are some women in the line as well. That's also, I know there are some children because it's also just a fan meet and greet, but there's a woman with a rose. You know what they're saying. It's good. It's good though. And we know next week's episode's doing with Giganta, you know, presumably the episode that comes out, you know, tonight probably is airing like right now as we speak. And then so the episode ends off with Clark and Lois and the Gundam attacks Toyman's Gundam after Lois originally destroys his stuff, and then she kind of tries to call out Winslow's shot, and this it pisses him off enough where he activates his defenses. And then as Clark's trying to figure out what to do, Cyborg Superman comes in because Lex had earlier told Jimmy that he was doing a special presentation. It's Cyborg Superman. He shows up, he defeats the Toyman, and it's like, God, where do we go from here? And that's where the episode ends, but it's a good ending. We get to see, you know, he removes the cyborg jaw. And yeah, it does I don't know too much about, I admit, I know some things about Reign of the Supermen, but that's only through like pop culture osmosis. I've never actually read it. And so I don't know everything about Cyborg Superman other than like he's a parody of Reed Richards originally. You know, Hank Hall, Reed Richards, that was the original joke, I guess. So I don't know exactly how Cyborg Superman works, but it does kind of feel like they're doing some of the Metallo stuff as well. Because the Metallo in season 2 of this show was nothing like the Metallo I think of is a guy who gets turned into a robot with like a kryptonite heart. And that's not what the Metallos in this show has been. So it does make me wonder if they're going to do some of that for Cyborg Superman. I think it would make sense. But so far, I'm interested. I'm loving the show. It was a good episode. It got some good moments. So yeah, I'm definitely here for more. And so with that, I guess let's talk about Supergirl 2026. So I saw this movie opening night. I did see this in a pretty full theater. Not like full to capacity, but by like modern standards, it was pretty full. Not as full as like The Sheep Detectives. Oh my gosh, I still cannot believe that movie sold out the night I went to go see it originally. But it was still pretty full. And one of my biggest fears, and it still is a fear, is that this movie is going to bomb. Because if this movie bombs, it's not the end of the DC universe. Like, we're definitely getting a Superman movie next year. But I'm really worried that if this movie fails, that's kind of it. Like, yeah, we'll still get Batman movies. We'll get a Superman movie occasionally, you know, every like 15 years. But that's it. No more Supergirl. No more, you know, weird experimental shit like Clayface. Not that anyone was asking for it, but it's interesting. You know, I like shit like that. I know some people are completely full of shit. They say like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if they made like these comic book art house movies? And then they make comic book art house movies and nobody likes them and nobody sees them. But I wanted to like this movie. My hope was that even if, you know, regardless of quality, that I was worried that the movie was going to fail, regardless of quality. And now that we know the movie isn't good, it's definitely going to fail. There's no way this makes its budget back. It's definitely going to lose money. We're getting Clayface, we're getting a new Batman, and we're getting Man of Tomorrow. But if Man of Tomorrow doesn't, like, exceed expectations, or whatever the hell the next Superman movie's called, if that does not exceed expectations, then that's the end of the DC universe. We've got like 2 or 3 movies left, and that's kind of it. Then everything's fucked. And I'm just so worried. So I did kind of give away my thoughts right there. Spoiler free, real quick. I did not love this movie, but I did not hate this movie either. This is a very middle of the road movie. It's got some good stuff going on. Millie Alcock as Supergirl is fantastic. I think when she's got stuff to work with, like the Krypton stuff in this movie, she's doing an amazing job. But the movie just doesn't really give her that much to work with. It's going to be more interesting to see her in Man of Tomorrow next year, because supposedly she's going to have a pretty big role in that one. So I hope that James Gunn gives her some more time to shine. But just based on this movie, she's got potential. She is not the problem with this movie. I guess I'll say that. You got Jason Momoa as Lobo. He's very comic accurate. You could take, you know how like when Ryan Reynolds first came out as Deadpool, and in that like test footage, and it was like, oh, that's Deadpool. Like he just nailed it off the rip. That's kind of Jason Momoa. It's the character right out of the comics. But if you've read the comic, you know Jason Momoa's not in the comics. I don't know why he's in this movie. The comic itself is not very funny. It is a very serious comic. It's got its moments, but it's not very lighthearted. This movie is trying to be lighthearted, and it fails at it at almost every level. There are some decent jokes. Jason Momoa did get at least one laugh out of me. But overall, I would say the movie is failing on that front. Because it's trying to be this serious story. And when it is that serious story, I think it's doing an okay job. But, like, the villain, Krem of the Yellow Hills, sometimes he's okay. But he's very clearly a villain who loves being evil. And when he's doing that whole, oh, I love being the villain thing. Hey, I'm gonna murder a basket of puppies while laughing about it. It just doesn't work. And there's a lot of shit like that in this. The girl who plays Ruthie, she's like 16. She's not terrible, but she's not great either. I have seen some people complaining that Ruthie's in this movie too much. If you've never read the comics, then you have no idea what that complaint means. Because, yeah, Ruthie plays a much bigger role in the comics. I'll put it like that. And I'm not going to say she should have been in it more, but they definitely should have done more with it. I think she's okay. She's okay. She gets some of the emotional beats, but it's nothing amazing. A big problem with this movie is the music. So there's a rule in screenwriting, let's say editing. There's a rule in film editing that when you're editing a film, you should make 3 cuts. At least 3 cuts. The first cut should have no music. Be as silent as possible. The second cut should have all the music in the world. Use all the music you want, all the licensed music, do whatever you want. Let your heart go wild. And then your third cut should be somewhere in the middle. Find what works about both the cuts, and that should be your final cut. This movie feels like the second cut. Every action scene has some music. Everything is just so loud. There are so many needle drops. Now, without going into spoilers, the final needle drop is by far the most divisive one. I've seen some people say it ruins the movie. I would not go that far. I definitely, when it happened, I was like, wait, what? This is the song they chose? Now, I do think you can get away with unconventional sound tracks for your final needle drop. I know it was a comedy movie and it was playing it up for comedy, but the Lego Batman movie had a really unconventional choice, and that worked, but that was also the joke. This is a much more serious movie. And I know, I've seen some people say that the problem is the version they used. That if they had just used the original version of the song, which, spoiler alert, the song is called The Middle, you've definitely heard it before. If they had just used the original version of The Middle, it would have been fine. But they used like one of those slow down, depressing covers, and it just didn't work. I've seen some people argue that they should have used the song they used in all the trailers. I guess the director came out and said that he actually asked James Gunn to help him pick a song for that scene. And James Gunn and Craig Gillespie went through like 40 different songs to choose the right one. I do not think it's the worst thing in the world. Some people, again, they've already started memeing on the scene. They'll tell you this scene ruins the movie. I wouldn't go that far, but I wouldn't say it's great. And that's kind of every action scene in this movie, though. Every action scene has a needle drop, or, Kara will be beating up people. But because we're following Ruthie's perspective, we only see her beating up people in the background, and meanwhile Ruthie's stuck there, listening to music while all this action goes on behind her. And I do, like, the first time they do it, it's like, okay, whatever. Because Ruthie's not really involved with much of the action in this movie. I understand, she's not a human, but she's, mortal, whereas Kara is Supergirl. And so I understand that it's harder to put her in action scenes, but it's definitely not impossible. And they do not do that much with Ruthie. So, the action scenes, I mean, I think some of them are good, but it's just an over-reliance on the music. Visually, the movie just looks ugly. If you've seen if you've ever read the comic they're adapting, which I have read and I'll talk about a little bit in a second, because I don't want to spoil it. I recommend you go read it though. But the comic that this is adapting, Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, has a very stark visual style. It is very colorful. This movie, on the other hand, is very drab and very gray. I don't want to say it's like even fucking some of those Star Wars movies have more color than this one. It's kind of sad when you look at it sometimes. And there is some credit I will give it, you know, not every alien is just a human or a human with a weird face bump. We do definitely get a lot of those. I would say most of the aliens are like that. All of the brigands are like that. They go to this one planet and they're all like that. But we do also get some alien-ass looking aliens. And I am glad for that. And I understand part of the reason why the movie looks ugly is because, you know, they're on dying planets. They're in these horrible places. It's supposed to, you know, look ugly, be that sort of, I don't want to say diesel punk, but, you know, just, it's supposed to look ugly. But the original comic was able to get away with so much by using color. And this, like, I understand. Okay. You know, in most comic book movies, how it's like, yes, this is a comic book movie, but they're not adapting one singular comic. They're adapting a variety of different comics. They're taking elements from different stories and combining them together. Even in something like Captain America Civil War. Like, yes, they're adapting Civil War, but they're not actually adapting the comic Civil War. They're just taking pieces from Civil War and basically making their own story. And as a result, Civil War the movie is better than Civil War the comic book. That's how most comic book movies work. I remember one time, I think it was Comic Drake explaining Thor Ragnarok, that it took elements from Thor the Mighty Avenger, and Thor Son of Odin, and Thor, like the 2009 run. Like, it wasn't just adapting one Thor comic, it was adapting like 6 or 7. This movie, on the other hand, is also the opposite of that. It's basically just adapting one comic. That being Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, written by Tom King. I actually have my copy right here. Written by Tom King, Bilquis Evely, Bilquis? I don't know how to pronounce that. And I think it's art by Matthew Lopes. Okay, no, its writer is Tom King. Bilquis Evely is the artist. Matthew Lopes is the colorist, Clayton Cowles is the letterer, and then Evely and Lopes did the collection of cover art. So, like, I have my comic right here. I originally read this comic. I want to say it was, when did I forgive Tom King? I read this when I forgave Tom King. He's still on the shit list, but he's not so far down on the shit list that I'll never read his stuff again. And I want to say it was around like 2023. I started, you know, I read Superman Up in the Air. I read this. I read Mr. Miracle. I read Rorschach earlier this year. You know, Tom King, I do not like as an author, but occasionally he does some good stuff. And this is one of his good books. I would recommend this to anybody. I definitely, if you watch the movie and we're like, that's okay, but it could be better, go read this book. There's a DC compact comic version. You can get a copy for like $10. It is more than worth that $10. And yeah, unlike any other superhero movie, I would argue this is just adapting that comic. It's not doing anything else. It's not picking and choosing. It's just adapting Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. Which, like, the last comic book movie that really worked like that I can think of is like Watchmen. You know, where you're just adapting one story. So this doesn't happen that often in the modern landscape. James Gunn's Superman was not an adaptation of a singular story. But this is. And so as a result, there is a part of me that wants to judge this the same way I would judge something like Project Hail Mary, where it's like that is a story that is directly adapting a book. This is a story that is directly adapting a book. And as a result, I feel like it should be judged the same way that you would adapt any other book. I know some people will say that no, that's unfair, that the movie is just a loose adaptation. But it's definitely not an in-name only adaptation. That's the thing. Like, yes, they do skip over a lot of stuff. Spoiler alert, the horse isn't in the movie. But that doesn't mean they're doing nothing. They're taking basically the whole plot from this book. They're doing a lot of the book. And as a result, I feel like I have to judge it against the book. And judged against the book, the movie fails. The book is better than the movie. But I didn't hate the movie. The movie's okay. It's just not as good as the book. And I've definitely seen the sentiment around that if you compare this to like some of the early Marvel stuff, like the first Marvel movie was Iron Man. A pretty good Marvel movie, honestly one of their better ones. And then the second one was Hulk, which is maybe one of the worst Marvel movies. That kind of feels like where we're at. We got the first Superman, which was a fantastic movie. I've seen it a bunch of times. I love it. And now we have Supergirl, which is our Hulk, and it just doesn't compare. But I will say, I liked this movie more than Hulk. I did. I definitely think that, you know, if this movie had come out like a decade ago, people would feel a lot better about this movie. I know some people will say superhero fatigue isn't real. I want to say James Gunn himself has said that, and that it's more superhero movies just aren't up to quality. Well, guess what? This isn't the quality you kind of said we were going to get. This movie fails in comparison. Whereas like Superman, I could see this launching a universe. This is not the good follow-up. It isn't. So I was, to that end, disappointed. I did not hate it, but I did not love it. I probably will never watch it again. I never say never, obviously. I mean, I said I was never going to watch Man of Steel again. Or, not Man of Steel, Batman v Superman. And I rewatched Batman v Superman last year. You know, I guarantee you this movie is better than Supergirl 1984. Haven't seen it yet. We'll talk about it next week, maybe. But I can guarantee you this movie is better than that. But how much better? I don't know. I do not hate this movie. There are probably worse movies that you could go out and see right now. I do not know if I would say take your kids to go see this movie. Not that it's not like a kid-friendly movie, but like I think with the Superman last year, anyone can go watch that. Anyone could watch Superman 2025, have a good time. This one, no, not so much. I think this one's a little bit more, you know, complicated on that front. There are definitely, you know, for younger kids, there's some shit in here that, Whereas, yeah, with Superman, I think anyone could do that. But I don't hate this movie. I definitely think there are worse things that you could go see in theaters right now. Disclosure Day. Sure, it's probably a more well-put-together movie, but it's also kind of completely full of shit. Whereas this movie's full of shit, and it's less put together. But, There's a Minions movie coming out next week, and, well, you should definitely go take your kids to see Toy Story 5 before you see the Minions. I mean, that Minions movie is still probably going to go see $1 billion. Like I said, I want this movie to succeed, mainly just because I want more of it. I want more of this universe, this world. There's so much potential here with so many characters. Like, the fact that we don't even have anything with Wonder Woman. Like, fuck. I understand. We'll get to it. But if these next two movies don't do well, then no, we're not going to get to it. She's your third fucking pillar, DC. I understand doing her last of the three, but still fucking get to it, man. Oh my god. And then fucking Gal Gadot makes watching the old ones hard. Even though I'll stand by, it's the best performance she's given in any movie. It's still fucking Gal Gadot. Breaks my goddamn heart. And yeah, I would also say there are other DC movies that are much worse than this. Shazam 2, Aquaman 2, The Flash, Wonder Woman 1984 are all worse than this movie. Again, it's not bad. It's fine, but I wanted it to be more than fine, especially with the source material you're working with. You've got like one of the only good Tom King books. Okay, Tom King does have a fair few books. Again, I've praised some of his stuff in the past, Mr. Miracle, Rorschach, I was really surprised by, and then Superman Up in the Sky was fantastic. There's another book. If you're looking for another Superman, Superman Up in the Sky is so fucking good. I was really impressed by it. Again, it didn't get Tom King off the shit list, but it got me reading a book of his again. So yeah, there's all my spoiler-free thoughts on the movie. We definitely did get into some spoilers there. I don't think I want to do a whole plot synopsis on this. I guess real quick spoiler thoughts. I really like the Krypton stuff. There's a point in the movie where Kara is talking to Ruthie, and Kara talks about how she's broken. And Ruthie, and she basically says that, Clark is a good guy, Superman is. But some of us are broken. I'm broken. And then she stops herself from saying Ruthie is broken. And then she kind of gives this whole story about how Krypton, it didn't die in a day. We see the city of Argo, that it flies off into space. And then the people of Argo start dying of kryptonite poisoning. And eventually Kara, her father lets her, builds her a spaceship to leave. They do, there's a whole thing in the James Gunn movie where it's like, how did Kara not know that Clark's parents wanted him to be a conqueror? Why did Kara not say anything? And while they don't directly address that plot hole, they at least make note that Kara's parents knew that they were sending Clark to Earth to be a god, to rule over humanity. Like, they do specifically address that. There's 2 lines from Kara's father that do specifically mention it. But everything on Krypton is so good. Everything with her mother dying, her father being sick, the whole thing of Kara, just promise me that you'll be good. That's what tells me that Millie Alcock is a good Supergirl. That she's doing a great job. When she's got stuff to work with, she does well. Everything on Krypton in Argo works great. David Cornsweet's in this movie a few times. He shows up early on the phone call. He shows up at the end with Kara comes back to Earth, which if you read this book, they do change the ending. I don't want to get into too much spoilers, but I don't want to say it ruins things, but it is definitely a different ending from the comic, and it is a much worse ending. I'll put it like that. Again, go read the comic. It is worth it. But yeah, and then we get another scene with Superman and David Cornsweet when Kara first comes to Earth. And he does kind of steal the show during that scene, but like, this is a Superman movie. This is a Supergirl movie. Superman should not be stealing the show in his like 1 or 2 scenes. That's not a good thing. Jason Momoa also, like, yes, he's got his moments, but overall, he wasn't that impressive. He's got like a moment with Ruthie where, they're both locked up and Ruthie figures out how to take out the guards, and Jason Momoa is like cheering her on as she kills this guy, or, strangles him. I don't know if she actually kills him, but like, that was like, I was like, that's an okay funny moment. Again, he's nailing Lobo the character. I just don't think we needed Lobo the character in this movie. Like, if he had been playing off David Cornsweet Superman, oh yeah, that would have been great. Like, if we were doing like the World saga and all of a sudden Lobo shows up, which I don't remember if he does in the comics. But if we had been doing shit like that, oh yeah, they would have contrasted off of each other greatly. But that's not what we're getting here. And instead, you know, there's a scene, they were talking about this on Kind of Funny, and I definitely heard it as well, where at the end of the movie, Lobo, after seeing what happens with Ruthie, that she doesn't kill the guy, he's kind of disappointed, and he tells Kara, like, see you later, tits. And it's like, wow, that's kind of misogynistic out of nowheres. And I definitely thought about that, but then I thought about it for a second and was like, no, he's saying see you later, dits, because he calls her a dits. But I definitely did hear tits. And I'm not again, Andy Cortez heard that as well. So I definitely know I'm not alone on that. But yeah, the things they take from Woman of Tomorrow, you know, some of it's good. There is, like, I understand them not doing the horse. Obviously, you know, Comet the Horse is one of those weird pieces of Supergirl lore that you probably don't want to do in the first movie. And, like, Tom King only kind of does it to flex that, you know, he's, like, this expert of DC knowledge. Except when he's not, because he's a fucking Tom King, god damn it. But, you know, I understand not doing some of that. There are other things that I understand not doing. Again, you've got a 2-hour movie to adapt a 100-something page comic. So I understand not doing all of it. But I would have liked some more of it, really. They do keep around the whole Crypto being sick, that they're going to find a cure. But they do obviously change things. So, yeah, I get that as well. It's... They kind of... I swear... Again, I was going to reread the comic before we did this show, and I didn't, but I definitely should have. Because I want to say Kara takes Crypto with him on the journey, whereas in this, they leave him behind on Ruthie's planet. And, like, because of that, Crypto feels like he's got less weight in this movie. I don't know. They make some... There's some interesting decisions. Some of it I do like. The start of the movie starts really strong. But at a certain point... Especially, again, after the whole Krypton thing... And then into that next action scene where you've got the brigands show up. They're trying to get Ruthie because they've been betrayed. Kara's been poisoned. She gets poisoned like 4 times in this movie. She gets kryptonite poisoned. She gets green sun poisoned. A lot happens. Like, I get it. I get what they're doing. But it just, that's kind of, I don't want to say that's when the movie falls apart. But definitely, yeah, the second half, you get all these action scenes all set to this music and they all don't work. Some of the early scenes work better, like there's a whole scene where she's like teleporting around the bus. Because they don't do the Phoenix thing from the comics, which I always like the imagery of that from the Phoenix thing. And I'm kind of, even if they had moved it to the end of the movie, I would have liked that. But nah. There are some good scenes. Again, if you had, with a different editor, because I guess there were 2 editors on this movie. With a different editor or a single editor, I think this movie would have been better. It does kind of sound like there was some interference from Warner Brothers and Zaslav and whatnot. Which, of course, David Zaslav ruins everything he touches. But this movie, I don't want to... It's not like not Guardians of the Galaxy. What's that? Suicide Squad. Where it's like, oh, this is a movie edited by like a trailer company. But like, there's a over-reliance on music. There are slow moments, sure, but not always. But I did... Again, it's not great, but it's not terrible either. I'm definitely, you know, I'm not getting a poster of this movie to hang up on my wall like I did Superman. It's not that good, but I want this universe to continue. I want to see more of Millie Alcock. I think she did a great job. The other characters, not so much. So yeah, I think that's a perfect place to end it. We fucking did the tower. Yeah, go see it or don't. I mean, I think there are worse things to see, but there's probably also better things to see. All right, let me hit that. Is it worth, you know, now that you know my thoughts on the movie, that I don't actually think it's that Great. Is it worth, was it worth getting this whole Supergirl thing? I'll keep using it for like my adventures with Superman or something since I got it. So that takes us to the outro. What's coming up in the future? Well, on Tuesday, we have Splatoon Raiders Direct. I admittedly do not remember what time it's at. I'm going to look that up right now. I've actually been playing a lot of Splatoon recently. So much fun. I don't know what it is, but I've got Splatoon on the brain. And I'm back up in S rank for the first time in a while. Probably a year. And I'm just having so much fun. I'm having so much fun playing Splatoon again. There's a Splatoon Raiders Direct at 7 a.m. Pacific time. What would that be? 10 a.m. Eastern? God, that's fucking early. Oh, wow. So, yeah, I'll be here for that, probably. Probably. I don't see why I wouldn't. That's still before I go to work. So, we'll be here for that. We'll watch the Splatoon Raiders Direct. And, yeah, July 1st is my birthday, but I know we've done stuff in the past, but I don't think I have any plans to celebrate that or Canada Day or anything else. So don't expect anything like that. But we'll be back next week. Hopefully I'll have seen Supergirl 1984. Maybe I'll actually finally sit down and fucking watch it. Because I've just been so busy. I also do want to read Woman of Tomorrow again. Maybe I'll actually sit down and read it again. It's been on my... I picked it out like right after I saw the movie. I went and got the copy off of my shelf and was like, God, I need to just fucking reread it. But I didn't. And God, I should have. So yeah, we'll see. Other than that, I don't really have anything, no other games. I know Rhythm Heaven comes out on the 2nd. And I know I constantly talk about, how my sense of rhythm was stolen by a trombone mancer. And because of that, there's a part of me that thinks it would be funny to do a Rhythm Heaven stream. But I also know that it would be fucking unbearable. That me with no rhythm, I would just, oh my God, it would be awful. But that might still be funny. There's a part of me that's like, oh, that would be funny in the same way that guy who played Cuphead, where he was doing bad at the tutorial, and they only released that footage because everyone thought it was funny. And then it blew up in their faces, even though nobody actually credits them for them. They only credit IGN. I think that me doing Rhythm Heaven would kind of be the same thing. Not as bad as that, obviously, but it would still be like, oh, why are you doing this? Because I've already bought the game. I already pre-ordered it. I made a promise that I was going to buy Rhythm Heaven, regardless, just to support Rhythm Heaven fans. And I'm a man of my word. But, I've definitely thought it. I'm definitely thinking about it, but I don't think I will. No, I think we're just going to do Splatoon, and then we'll be back. We'll finish Plague of Shadows. We only have like 4 levels left. We honestly, I probably with like another hour could have finished it tonight, but we did the tower. That's good enough for me. We'll try to finish it. We'll definitely finish it next week, and then depending on how busy next week is, maybe we'll just start King of Cards. Because King of Cards, I worry, is going to take me forever. My shortest playthrough of all of these previous Shovel Knight campaigns has been like 2 hours or less. I'm rusty, so it's taken me about 3 hours. My shortest playthrough of King of Cards is like 7 hours. And that's me, being in better shape than I am. So if, most of these campaigns are taking me 3-4 hours, King of Cards is probably going to take me 7. And so we can start it next week. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, with that, I think that's where I'm going to end off. So I hope you all enjoyed. Stay tuned for more. Till next time, peace.